You are now listening to theGrio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Writing Black. I'm your host, Maiysha Kai, and as always, we are here to talk about Black thought, Black writers, Black thinkers, and Black leaders, and we have an incredible one here today. Bethann Hardison is a legend in the fashion world and beyond. She has broken barriers at pretty much every level you can think at, and is continuing to do so 5 decades into her career, because she's still modeling, y'all, in addition to everything else. And she has an incredible new documentary out. It's a visual memoir. It is such a special film. It's called Invisible Beauty.
I always know you can change things. I've done it before.
Everyone's talking about diversity and inclusion. That directly stems from the work that Bethann did.
Without her, the opportunities wouldn't exist for me to do what I love.
She's like a second mother to me.
That one shining light of kindness.
We're all students of Bethann Hardison.
And I always say, just, a hammock and a tequila, I'm good.
You heard it first.
Not only does this film chronicle Bethann's incredible life, but she co-wrote and co-directed it, and that's why she's here with us today. Hello, Bethann Hardison. You are a personal hero of mine, so I cannot tell you enough how special it is to me that you were with us on Writing Black today. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm really well. I'm happy to be alive and very happy that, people are enjoying the film. Really, very much so.
Seeing a screener of this film, I did not expect. I've always followed your career. For me, it was extremely personal. I modeled for 20 years myself. I started the year after you closed Bethann Management. And I remember it being one of my big regrets is that I didn't get to work with Bethann. But what was so amazing to me about this film is that, so many of us, particularly those of us who worked in fashion, on both sides of the camera, we owe you such a deep debt, such a gratitude. Those of us who are Black in this industry, it is not an easy industry for anybody, but particularly for people of color and particularly for Black people. And what you have managed to do is just kind of stratospheric, and to see we're seeing Zendaya and Tracee Ellis Ross and Naomi Campbell and Iman and Tyson and all these people saying you were so instrumental in getting them off the ground. How does it feel to having this 2-hour piece of work? Kind of, we talk about people getting their flowers, but how does this feel to have produced this and see the way that people are showing up for you?
No, I really truly look forward to it going into theaters. It meant a lot to me as we were developing the film for it to be on a silver screen. That was my ultimate. It has to be in a theater. And for me, it's been really great because for me, I've said, often in the Q&As that I never thought I had a story. I just didn't even imagine, we finished a film, and when Frederick, my co-director, Frederick Chang, sent me the 4 hours of what he had gotten it down from 7 hours that he loved, that's when I became a believer. So, I just had to say to him, well, okay, now I get it. Because I was doing the work, being the subject, co-directing, working with him has been extraordinary. But I'm very excited that people are going to see it. And I want so many more people to see it than even know that they should see it, because they won't know about it until we start telling them about it. But I'm very, very happy and very excited about it. And I think it's like a game changer within myself. Because I too learned a lot about me watching the film.
And we will be right back with more Writing Black.
I'm Touré. Join us for crazy true stories about stars who I really hung out with, like Snoop, Jay-Z, Prince, Kanye, and the time I got kidnapped by Suge Knight. Don't miss my animated series, Star Stories with Touré, from the theGrio Black Podcast Network.
All right, welcome back to Writing Black. It's incredible to me that you would think that you didn't have a story, because to me, I'm sitting there thinking there's so many stories in
I
this
know.
in this one piece of work. I don't know how you managed to condense it down to 2 hours. And it
Yeah,
is
tough.
every single minute of it, I think, is so inspiring and affirming. But it's also really deeply interesting. Like, you are a deeply interesting person, the way that you talk about your upbringing and these two very unique parents. I mean, your father was an imam, like that, like all of these elements who have made you into this person that so many of us now revere. Um, and this is also an interesting film because, you know, it's a story within a story. You are writing your memoirs as a documentary is being made about you, and I've never seen anything quite like that. So let's talk about this act of storytelling and kind of doing these two things in tandem. What was that experience like, trying to flesh out this book that I also can't wait to read, and fleshing out this on-screen story at the same time?
Yeah, that was a challenge in itself. You didn't know it was a challenge until we got to a place where I got to a place where all of a sudden I was the film started to take precedent. I was working on the film and trying to write the book at the same time. And it's my first book, and I'm the first time I'm writing something like this. All right, I'm good on Instagram and leaving great posts and writing nice letters and even writing paragraphs that could change the world, which it did, in my letters. But it was really kind of a bit of a challenge to do it. But the idea that I still have to finish it, that's where the greatest challenge comes. So for me, it's really like, I'm doing it. It's in the book is going to be a different story because it's many people's stories. I talk about a lot of people I knew. That tells my story. As you hear what I say in the film, I learned that, and it's not like the book because not like the film, because the film has this common thread. The common thread is, through it all, it talks about the activism, the advocacy. Even though it's not a fashion film, it's fashion related. There's so many layers of this film, like you said. So it really has its own, storyline, where the book is everything, anything, everything. People I knew, people that you would know, in my personal relationships with them, anywhere from Jean-Michel Basquiat to Carolyn Bessette that was married to John Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that I experienced. So when I talk about them, I'm talking about myself. So it'll be interesting to see what I come up with or what they allow me to have, because the editing is going to be interesting too. But hopefully I'll get the book out. Hopefully they're hoping that it can be out by the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025. I have to just finish the rest. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we also have to shout out Kierna Mayo because she makes an appearance in the film, and I know that you're working with her on this, and we all owe her a great debt as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to talk about something that comes up in the film. You talk about this is so interesting for me to hear it from you, because I think that those of us looking from the outside in at this incredible trajectory that you've had, you seem so fearless. You seem so like you're just going to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you're just going to, give it all you got. And to hear you admit that you were scared to death to approach this book and tell these stories and kind of dig into this new medium, I thought was so vulnerable. And I think as a writer, was so powerful to me, because that was super honest. Tell me how you use fear. You've done so much, and you're continuing to tackle things day by day and explore all these new things. How do you tackle that fear that comes up for all of us when we're trying to do something new?
I don't like it. I really honestly don't like fear. I don't like the idea of being in fear. I don't like, that's why I don't even go to crazy movies that, want to scare you to death. Why do I want to sit and pay for that? I did when I was a kid. But fear, there's some things you're fearful about, and it's something that's out of your control. But there's some things that brings fear that's within your control. And I think starting my model agency, there was a lot of fear to that. I think well, surely writing a book, there's great fear to that, because you got to write it. And, if you're not a practice writer, I'm sure that many writers think that they don't enjoy the process. It's for many people who are professional writers, it's a lonely ride, I think. But for people who are like myself, I've just got to deliver and hope that people enjoy or care about what I'm writing about. I think so fear in that case, you don't want to fail. I don't like failing. So I stay in my lane, sort of, kind of, I don't try and go out and try and do things I can't. I've always wanted to snowboard. I learned to snowboard. I broke my finger, but doesn't matter. Now I can't do it because I'm scared if I fall down, I can't get up as fast. But there's only a few things that I actually feel that I've, had, great fear at. And in some ways, you got to get out of your own way. That's the only thing that I always can say. To do this film, I had to get out of my way because I was working on another film, and people would say to me, yeah, but you need to, somebody need to do a film on you. And I just couldn't even imagine. I don't want to be in front of the camera. There's nothing to talk about me. But when I decided that it was easier to make this film about me, it would be easier to tell the story than what I was trying to do. I was trying to do before an expose on the fashion industry and tell the story between three girls. And it was still called Invisible Beauty, but it becomes complicated in that way. So this is what we've done. So I got out of my own way, and I let Frederick who Frederick asked me to co-direct it. He said, I want you to co-direct this with me. And he's done some wonderful films prior. So I was very happy about that. I had no fear in that because I had him as a crutch. He's your spar partner, and he's a very kind person, and he's very, he's so proud of me for how I allowed this story to be documented.
She's the godmother of fashion.
When I started, I was the first black-looking model on 7th Avenue.
There was no people who looked like me.
I knew the difference of segregation from childhood.
These people thought that we were less. I let them know we are here. And we never had really any problems to doing any of it. So those fears come, go, you get out of it. But basically, the only fears I tried that I'll attempt are the ones I think I can control.
Well, I mean, that's one strategy. And we're going to talk about a few more. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Bethann Hardison to talk about Invisible Beauty on Writing Black. And we are back with the incredible Bethann Hardison. We were just talking about fear. We were talking about vulnerability too. I mean, you really did, there's a portion where someone says in the film that you're a very private person. I want to say it's Leah Capetti says that you're a very private person and a bit of an enigma to those who love you. And that's a wide breadth of people who love you. But there is a lot of vulnerability here. There's a lot revealed here. Some of it, what was it like to kind of sit there? I use the word excavation a lot on this podcast. It's one of our keywords here when we talk about telling stories. But there's a lot of relationships revealed here. You have your son talking about, the difficulties of having such a dynamic parent, I think, in some ways.
She sacrificed a lot. My mother has enough ambition for the whole world.
It's really hard as a single mom. I was scared to fail.
She wants us to win more than anything. It gets a little challenging at times.
But that's going to be part of your great story. I don't know who I think I am, but I do be trying.
You've got all these people who are, yes, on one hand, giving you your flowers, but also talking about how you really challenge them. So what was it like to kind of excavate some relationships through this process? Did you find it to be cathartic or healing or eye-opening?
No. The only thing, honestly, they're not that deep. It looks, it looks more deep when I think in the film.
That's some good editing, then.
Yeah, they look more deep because they say, "Oh, is everything all right with you and Kadeem? When's the last time you talked?" People really are, happily concerned. There's always been, Kadeem just disappears, but it's not like a dysfunctional relationship. No, we never had that. But I have to admit that I could be very open about that. But I didn't realize it would be in the film either. I didn't realize that, whenever Frederick's with me, he's always shooting. But at the end of the day, I also find him like Father Confessor. I can easily tell him anything and everything. I just say, once we went on this journey together, I just would speak to him about, oh, I got COVID. They say I have COVID. I was working on this series down in Georgia, and I don't have COVID, but the only 3 people I told, well, he was one. So he becomes that person that you don't even notice what you're saying, and he has a camera up. Or, when you're on the phone, you're talking. The relationships like something like that, I think I had to really realize I'm co-directing this. I'm the subject. And if anything, I've always been a documentarian. This is my first film, but in my mind, I've always wanted to tell stories. You can't get in the way of the story. You have to, whatever you do, you have to fall back and allow it to just go, because otherwise you won't tell it right. People won't feel it. It won't be honest to you. So I think that was the most important thing. And what did surprise me is seeing that I learned that, because I didn't, so you'll know this, I wasn't available. Wasn't available. That's not the word. I didn't allow myself to sit on any interview. So all the interviews were done just with Frederick and the crew. I never saw any of them until I saw them once they were edited. So to see what Kadeem had expressed and how he explained it, and they say his interview was as long as mine. Mine was the longest, his was equally. And I was just so proud of that, that he could just, cop to his lacking in some way, he's not putting it. So that was very, very nice to hear, in that way.
Yeah, we're usually talking on this podcast about, characters, but when it's real people, and, I did think it was really interesting. I love that you've already alluded to the memoir that's coming, which sounds like it's going to be just as kind of wonderfully unconventional as this, that you are, I hope I'm correct here, I'm taking this from the film, that you are, yes, telling your story through other people's stories. I think the big thing you walk away from Invisible Beauty with is this indelible sense of impact that you have made.
Yeah.
And so taking on telling your story through other people, like, how are you teasing that out? Is it kind of like, I don't want you to spoil anything for us, but are you doing this through vignettes? Are you doing this through revelations? Is it chronological? Like, how is that unfolding for you?
Yeah. In the writing of the book, right? No, it's not, the whole book is not telling my story through others, but in some cases it is, because I'm telling you an incident that happened, or a story that happened, or, a situation. And the reason why the situation happens because, Carolyn came to my office and sat down and told me when she and John had first started dating. It's things like that. I'm telling that story, but the fact that I'm the one telling it is like it's my story.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah. So that in that case, yes, that is how it is. But then there's other things that sometimes it's just a paragraph of me just telling you what I think about something. So it can be philosophical in one way. And then in other places, I really do tell you my experiences and things that are I'm recognizing as I've gotten older. I was an athlete. I was always active. I'm a well-known dancer, social dancer. And I basically now I'm finding the imbalance of walking. So I want to write about body and how it changes. Really how you really begin to see how age becomes something you don't notice that happens, but you notice it in other ways too. How you feel about people, relationships. And I think it's so important, surely to talk about how people have their relationships and how they manage their children. Sometimes, you witness so many things that you start to share just what you're beginning to observe. And that's things like that are in the book. Even about the model industry. There are many people who feel very positive that everything is inclusive. everything should be inclusive. I don't feel like that.
Okay.
I think there should be a line where everything is exclusive. There are some things that should be exclusive. I mean, that's what keeps the bar high. And that's what reminds you much more of an industry that we think we're in. This has become more pop culture more and more and more and more. That changes exactly what we knew something to have been. It becomes an influence from the outside. This was a tiny little island in the fashion industry for forever, and now it's full of much more migrants, but the island real estate hasn't changed. It's the same small little industry. It's not the auto industry. It's called the fashion industry.
Well, I want to talk more about that, and also, yeah, because I think there's something to be said there in terms of the fantasy that is fashion. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Bethann Hardison and more Writing Black.
I'm Torre. Join us for crazy true stories about stars who I really hung out with, like Snoop, Jay-Z, Prince, Kanye, and the time I got kidnapped by Suge Knight. Don't miss my animated series, Star Stories with Torre, from the theGrio Black Podcast Network.
And we are back with more Writing Black and our incredible guest today, Bethann Hardison. We were just talking about, we were talking about so many things. I am personally overwhelmed by this conversation because I think like the amount of wisdom that you obviously impart to everyone you encounter is so, it's so rich. And I want to talk a little bit about relevance. As we were just talking about age and we were talking about fantasy and, all these things that, that often don't go in tandem together, but you are still very much a part of the fantasy world that, that is fashion. You are still starring in campaigns and still, you still have so much input and so much influence. What does it mean to you now, that level of being on the other side of it? I mean, we're 50 years out now from the Battle of Versailles, right? This year we celebrate 50 years, and which was a groundbreaking moment for you, for Black women in fashion, et cetera. But what does it mean to you now, that relevance?
The good thing is that people say, "Oh my God, you have such a full life," and you don't. And that's the reason why Frederick, my co-director, Frederick Chang, asked me to co-direct the film, is because he felt that I'm still alive. It's very, he didn't want to take the full responsibility of telling a story about someone who's still living her life so full. So I think the relevancy thing is just something that so happens to happen to certain people. It doesn't happen to everyone. Everyone shouldn't try hard to make it happen to them, because you'll just
and don't we all try? We try so hard.
You know what I mean? It's something that shows up at the end more towards as your life, as you're doing it. People would say to me, when I had to start the model agency, "Oh my God, you always remain relevant." You don't think you're not trying to remain relevant. You're just trying to make sure you don't get evicted. You're not trying to do anything special in that way, but many people think because you have success at it, that was a goal. It never been my goal. When I say I'm not ambitious, no one believes that. They think it's ridiculous. How could you say that? Look at all that you've done. But you don't do it out of ambition. You do it out of need. Oftentimes, that's what happens. You just got to do something, or it's the way you have to walk the walk, because you're capable, but not because, oh my goodness, one day. Being ambitious, you can make a plan. The way my life is run, it just seems like things just pop up. And when it comes down to the industry of fashion and the industry of models, they're two different industries.
They are. Yeah.
They basically, it's changed so greatly and so much. And the fact that I could go work with Gucci and become this consultant, that was such an incredible moment, because I've never worked corporately. It's so great to have experienced that. But you also see that Alessandro noticed something about me, and Benedetta, another woman of age that was a model, and he put us in his campaign. That was something I fought for a while. really want to do that. I don't really, but I'm glad I wind up doing it because the experience of the shoot was brilliant because of the photographer. And we shot it in Rome, and being on the street, how fast he was. He only did two shots, and that was great. And then once that happens, then it starts becoming like a slow train. The next thing somebody else is asking you to do something, whether it be the Victoria's Secret or the Gap or Kate Spade, all these things start to happen. And people start to make, joke about it. Oh, the British Vogue was amazing because I thought he's going to do a portrait and that's it. No, he wanted 8 pages.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm not a print model. I've never been. I'm a runway model. But he said, oh, you're a supermodel. That's Edward Enninfeld saying that. No, I'm not. I was a top model at the time within that game. But anyway, we got it done. And the truth of it is you can do it. And it turns out nice and it's really great. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
That ambition conversation is such an interesting one. I related to it personally because I also have a life that is and a career that is kind of just things pop up. But when do you know it's time to go and to transition? I mean, you closed your modeling agency, at a point where I think a lot of people were like,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, it's true.
It's up here, and most people don't do that. How do you act upon that instinct? Because I do think in many ways there's some parallels to writing there. Like, when do you know when to close a chapter? I guess is maybe the best way to phrase that.
Exactly true. When it comes to something like my model agency, I never wanted to have a model agency. I got talked into having the model agency, and then Bonnie Berman, who's in the film, went and found me the money, and all the models was willing to take the risk with me. So I didn't have to do this voucher system, which was something that other model agencies had enough finance to do. I was looking to get out of it when I went into it. So it wasn't something that, you say, oh, it doesn't happen to me where it happens more to me in a way that it's the next thing you have to do. It's not like a plan, because I think if you had a plan, then, that's ambition. That's being, like setting goals. I've never done that. So the model agency thing, yes, I wanted to get out of it, but I was so successful that it wound up being 13 years. But I knew in the 12th year that 13th year had to be my out. And I'm very happy that it allowed me to come out and I didn't fall on my face. I could have sold my model agency, but then I would have had to stay in it. And then many people started writing in the New York Times specifically saying, now that I'm leaving the industry, what's going to happen? Because I kept the industry so much more balanced. But then when I did leave, it went down into, the Berlin Wall came down and Eastern Europe came and the models changed. So then you had to come back into the game in some way to change it, to fix it, to acknowledge that this was happening. And you get to a place where you basically just know that life helps you move you along more so than you taking life and telling life what to do. I think in my case, that's what's happened. I know it, and hearing people talk about the film in that way, it made so many people want to go home and change their life, go home and fix their life, go home and do more, go home. I was hearing all of these things. I look at the film in such a way, it's such an inspiring film. I hear it. So I understand it, but I promise you, as I said to a young kid who asked me, what should we do as young people? And I said, don't try to be like the woman on the screen, because that isn't necessarily your role or the goal that will benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
But what you should do is just go out and vote. If you vote, you are doing a great deal for us all. That's the only thing you can only ask people to do. If you want to fix what's going on, you got to vote. Stop talking about they're all the same and all the excuses you give. That kind of thing is how you actually see how your life changes, is by doing things that you know you're supposed to do. And then good news is that things work out sometimes real nice.
I mean, I would say so. And I love that advice personally. I also think, I'm interested in you've changed so much for so many people for the better, but obviously there's still so much And as you see, whenever you, when you took your hands off the wheel, like they slide right back.
Yeah.
What would you like to see next? I mean, you talk a little bit about this passing of the torch a bit, but whether it's you or someone else, what would you like to see continue to happen, or momentum that you would like to see in the industries that you've chosen?
I think that, it's not much more can be done. The industry has changed a great deal. The model industry has changed. There's so many more models. You can't develop talent like you used to. There's so much more. We have things like casting directors and stylists. They came on board, maybe a decade or two ago or less. But things have changed in the industry. And the fact that we were able to finally help people to see that, that Blacks can wear clothes in the wintertime for your collection, or that you can actually try to make sure you be inclusive racially. That was something that I think was so important to do. And it's been done. They've done it. I really want the young emerging designers of color, or any color, to really recognize, do you really want to go out there based on ego, or do you want to go learn how to be in the business? It would be wiser to really go work for someone for a while, for a good while, and so that someone else can discover you at what you're good at. That's what happens in Europe a lot with the luxury brands. So I think the industry has really gone its way. I think it's really where it's going to be. I think it's going to stay racially diverse for quite a while. I do. I think that the DEI of corporations and things like that is having already its effect. And I do know that whatever happened with Black Lives Matter and Mr. Floyd losing his life in that way, that set the industry and everybody ablaze, that's now really falling back. What they extended before is not being extended so much now.
Right.
So anybody who had it together basically should try and make sure it stays together, because they may be the ones who can win this. It's not meant for everybody. Everyone's not going to fit through that tunnel. I've said that often. You got to know this is the model industry is separate, but the fashion industry has to deal a lot with wholesale and retail, and that's not an easy game.
Yeah. It's interesting because we hear, again, Leah Capetti in the documentary, she says, she makes that reference to there only being one. And I think because of you, we know that there, not only can there be more than one, but so many of us made it through the door. We ask a question of everyone who comes on the podcast, so I'm going to ask you as well. You are writing now, but what do you read? Like, who do you love? Who are the creators that you love to engage with?
Don't ask that question. Because I don't read. I know. I shouldn't say that out loud.
That's the answer. That's the answer.
I listen to talk radio. And I do. And I listen to talk radio more than I listen to music. I listen to the radio. I'm a radio kid. But I have lots of books. I have so many books, and there's so many great writers right now. It's just so many, and I don't engage like I used to when I was younger. And I don't know if it's because I had time or whatever. But some people, I was saying to my publisher, it's interesting about writing and the publishing world. There are people who nowadays don't read like they used to. There's an enormous amount of people like that. But there are going to always be people who need to read. That's always the case. There's people who just read, and they will always need to read. And so I'm just not. I hate to admit it, but I'm not that. But I have lots of books, and I collect them. I just do.
There's a word for us. There's people like that who collect a lot of books, who collect more books than we read. There's a word for that. I'm gonna find it and say it on the podcast at some point. But again, we cannot thank you enough for joining us. I really want people to engage with this film. Invisible Beauty is such an accomplishment. It's such a marvelous and wonderful, it is wonderful that you're living, that you're here, that we can discuss this with you, because so often people don't get their flowers until after the fact, and to have you still here, still vibrant, still doing everything that you do. I really hope people will engage with it. Go to the theater. You can go back to the theater, guys. It's coming out on September 15th. Go to the theater, enjoy it. Take yourself to lunch or dinner and have a glamorous evening with Bethann Hardison. And thank you so much for joining us.
And I'm just going to add one word or two.
Oh, go for it.
September 15th at the Film Forum. It starts. That's a theatrical release. And it should be there at least 2 weeks. But if you keep coming, everyone, it will be there for 3 and 4.
That's right. You know about demand, y'all. So that's how trends get started. But yeah, this is, you are a godmother to many. Some of us you don't even know, and because you did, we know that we can. So thank you so much for everything.
You're so welcome. I'm so proud to see you here, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, really.
Well, that was an incredible experience, and just so you know, I actually did get a few of Bethann's favorite writers out of her. She loves the writing of Roxane Gay. Shout out to Roxane Gay and Zadie Smith. So she does read, y'all. This is a little portion of Writing Black that we love to call my favorites, our recommended reading for the week. And I would be remiss if I did not point out this book, The Incredible Supreme Models, Iconic Black Women Who Revolutionized Fashion. This is by Marcellus Reynolds with a foreword by Veronica Webb, supermodel Veronica Webb. And of course, Bethann is in this book, as are a lot of your favorite faces, I'm sure, and the stories behind them. But if you really, really want to know more about this incredible industry, this incredible journey, and Bethann's personal impact on the fashion industry, not just modeling, the fashion industry at large, you got to check out Invisible Beauty. I can't say it enough. Yes, it's going to open at the Film Forum. It's an independent film. It'll be all over the country. Please look for it. Google is your friend. And join us next time for another episode of Writing Black. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of Writing Black. As always, you can find us on the theGrio app or wherever you find your podcasts.
I'm political scientist, author, and professor Dr. Christina Greer, and I'm host of The Blackest Questions on theGrio's Black Podcast Network. This person invented ranch dressing around 1950. Who are they?
I have no idea.
This all began as an exclusive Black History trivia party at my home in Harlem with family and friends. And they got so popular, it seemed only right to share the fun with our Grio listeners. Each week, we invite a familiar face on the podcast to play. What was the name of the person who was an enslaved chief cook for George Washington and later ran away to freedom? In 1868, this university was the first in the country to open a medical school that welcomed medical students of all races, genders, and social classes. What university was it?
No, this is why I like doing stuff with you, because I leave educated. I was not taught this in Alabama public schools.
Question number 3, you ready?
Yes. Let me try to redeem myself.
How did we go from Kwanzaa to like these obscure?
Sport, darling.
This is like the New York Times crossword from a Monday to a Saturday.
Right or wrong, because all we care about is the journey and having some fun while we do it.
I'm excited and also a little nervous.
Oh, listen, no need to be nervous. And as I tell all of my guests, this is an opportunity for us to educate ourselves, because Black history is American history. So we're just going to have some fun. Listen, some people get 0 out of 5. Some people get 5 out of 5. It doesn't matter. We're just going to be on a little intellectual journey together.
LaToya Cantrell?
That's right. Mayor LaToya Cantrell.
Hercules Posey.
Born in 1754, and he was a member of the Mount Vernon slave community, widely admired for his culinary skills.
I'm going to guess Afro-punk.
Close. It's Afro Nation. So last year, according to my research, it's Samuel Wilson, aka Falcon.
Wrong. Wrong. I am disputing this.
I'm very 99.9999 sure that it is Representative John Lewis, who is also from the state of Alabama. That lets you know, Christina, we got some goodness come out of Alabama.
There's something in the water in Alabama, and you are absolutely correct.
The harder they come.
Close.
Oh, wait. The harder they fall?
That's right.
I'm one of those people that just changes one word.
I mean, I know the song too well.
I just don't know nothing today.
It's
I'm gonna pour myself a little water while you tell me the answer.
The answer is Seneca Village, which began in 1825 with the purchase of land by a trustee of the AME Zion Church.
You know why games like this make me nervous? I don't know if I know enough black. Do I know enough? How black am I? Oh my Lord, we gonna find out in public.
So give us a follow, subscribe, and join us on the Blackest Questions.